Ever met someone who seemed utterly captivated by your presence, only to slip away without explanation? Have you ever wondered why men fall for strong, independent women, but then mysteriously vanish just as quickly? Today, we're unlocking a truth about the silent power of self-sufficient women and how it leaves even the strongest men utterly spellbound and confused. You've probably met someone who seemed completely captivated by your presence, only to slowly drift away without explanation. Have you ever wondered why men fall so fast for strong, self-sufficient women and then vanish just as quickly? Today, you're about to unlock a truth that could completely change how you view yourself, your power, and your relationships. We're diving deep into the world of Sigma females, those quiet yet powerful forces of nature, and exactly why they can leave even the strongest men utterly spellbound and then utterly confused. Let's explore. There's a phenomenon that rarely gets talked about, yet it sits at the heart of why some women, especially those who are deeply independent, self-sufficient, and fundamentally uninterested in playing the usual social games, create an initial gravitational pull that men find impossible to resist. It's as if a storm, powerful and silent, has entered the room, and most people are simply unprepared for it. But this isn't a storm that causes chaos with loud noise. It's a storm that moves with precision and purpose, disrupting not with noise, but with its very presence. When a woman carries herself with quiet certainty, when she needs nothing from anyone, when her validation is self-sourced, she becomes, psychologically speaking, an anomaly. She doesn't project a need to be saved. She doesn't broadcast desperation or dependence, either materially or emotionally. Men, naturally attuned and socially conditioned to look for opportunities to be the hero, the provider, to be needed, can't help but be drawn to her. But they can't quite articulate why. They're captivated by what they don't understand. And that which they don't immediately understand triggers the deepest parts of their psyche, parts rooted in the urge to pursue, to conquer, to unlock a mystery. And at first, that pursuit feels invigorating. The Sigma female doesn't provide the easy victories that others might. She doesn't flatter unnecessarily. She doesn't perform to maintain his interest. She is not bait dangling before a predator. She is a mountain solid, immovable, completely uninterested in who is or isn't trying to climb her slopes. And so, initially, men romanticize this inaccessibility. They project onto her ideas of what they imagine she must be beneath that strength. Imagine something powerful present in the space silent, yet irresistible. This is the force of Sigma females, those who can make men lose their footing without even moving, without a word. But what makes them this way? Let's uncover more in the next section. Continuing from the previous discussion about the magnetic pull of Sigma females, let's now dive deeper into the psychological complexities they present to men. Men often tell themselves that if they work hard enough, if they prove their worth, they will earn access to something rare and precious, something that only a select few get to experience. However, the deeper psychological reality is much more complicated and far more uncomfortable. When men finally realize that a Sigma woman's world does not and will not revolve around them, they are confronted with a brutal truth about their own identity. If a man has built his sense of self-worth around being needed, around solving problems, providing answers, or being someone's indispensable partner, then a woman who already solves her own problems without him represents the quiet annihilation of that identity. She doesn't need him. She might want him, but that is fundamentally a different proposition. To be chosen rather than needed requires a man to truly offer value, not simply to exist as a savior or a solution. It demands that he stands wholly on his own 2 feet as a partner, not as a rescuer. This shift in dynamic stirs a deep evolutionary fear, the fear of becoming redundant. It's not always conscious. In fact, it often goes unnoticed until it becomes a point of no return. This fear creeps in subtly, like a draft slipping through a closed window, unnoticed until it becomes too cold to ignore. Men who have not yet confronted their need to be needed will feel this fear rising within them. Rather than confront or articulate it, they slowly begin to retreat. It happens subtly, sometimes even without fully understanding why they are doing it. They stop calling, they get busy, they vanish. This behavior is layered with the psychological effect of mystery itself. Human beings are instinctively drawn to mystery. What we cannot immediately categorize or understand, we cannot easily dismiss. The Sigma female's refusal to over-explain herself, to reveal her entire inner world upon first meeting, only intensifies that initial attraction. It is the unknown that pulls people in, the sense that something sacred, something not meant for the entire world's consumption, might be hidden here if only one is brave or worthy enough to discover it. But herein lies the paradox. Mystery invites both fascination and anxiety. Mystery is a double-edged sword. For those unprepared for it, it becomes a source of unease. Men who are used to easily reading women, accustomed to gaining quick emotional access to vulnerability's linear storytelling, find themselves facing a puzzle they cannot solve. And human psychology tells us something crucial about puzzles. When they remain unsolved for too long without progress, they stop being invigorating and begin to feel exhausting. That exhaustion, that sense of uncertainty, can quickly transform into fear. But this fear isn't rooted in her. It's rooted in the unknown spaces within himself that she reflects back. Her mystery shines a light on those shadowy parts of himself, and this unfamiliarity creates a discomfort he cannot easily shake off. What happens next? Will he face this challenge or retreat even further? Stay with me as we unravel the next phase of this intriguing psychological dance. Continuing from the previous exploration of how the Sigma female challenges a man's sense of self, let's now examine how this dynamic plays out when he faces his own unresolved insecurities. Her quiet strength illuminates the uncertainties that lie deep within him. The very presence of her emotional self-sufficiency makes his dependency needs stand out more glaringly. And when these reflections emerge subtly, insidiously, it becomes easier for him to distance himself from her, almost as if it's necessary for the preservation of his own sense of identity. He tells himself that he's too busy, that she's too complicated, that the timing just isn't right. These are protective stories, not crafted to make sense of her, but to make sense of the discomfort he feels about his own inadequacies. It's not her independence or mystery that drives him away, but rather what they reveal within him what he is not yet ready to confront. What begins as admiration often transforms into avoidance. Not because the Sigma female did anything wrong, but because she did something unbearably right. She simply existed without apology. There's a profound difference between demanding power and embodying it. The Sigma female does not need to raise her voice to command attention. She does not seek validation or recognition, and yet, paradoxically, she attracts more of it than those who chase after it. Her very existence challenges the structure of the social hierarchy because she refuses to play by traditional rules. She is not interested in dominance for the sake of power, nor is she a passive participant seeking someone to lead her. She is a sovereign being, and her sovereignty radiates through every interaction, every decision, every moment of silence. Men, whether consciously or unconsciously, recognize this immediately. The typical script's validation, flirtation, and even seduction simply falter in her presence. Compliments bounce off her armor of self-assurance, and flattery falls flat. She is not cold, she is complete. And this completeness, this internal fortitude, confronts a man with the full weight of his own deficiencies. For a man who is used to feeling powerful in relation to the women he encounters drawing, strength from being needed, admired, or depended upon, he now finds himself either invisible or, at best, not the center of attention. He is no longer the sun around which another orbits. He must either stand fully as himself before her or shrink into irrelevance. The Sigma female's power is not aggressive. It does not seek to dominate or overwhelm. Yet paradoxically, it is overwhelming because it reveals the hidden hierarchies that men themselves operate under. If a man has built his identity around being able to control, influence, or dominate, whether physically, emotionally, or intellectually. Then, standing before a woman who requires neither his control nor his influence feels like an existential threat. She doesn't fight him for power, she simply denies the need for it entirely, and in that denial, he experiences the crumbling of illusions he may not have even realized he was clinging to. So, what happens when a man faces this reality? Will he be able to reconcile his need for power with her indifference to it? Let's continue in the next section and explore the consequences of this clash. As we continue to explore the powerful dynamic between the Sigma female and men who struggle with their own identity, let's delve into the emotional impact of this confrontation and what it reveals about a man's true nature. This encounter is not trivial. It strikes at the very foundations of what it means to matter in someone else's life. It asks the terrifying question: who are you if you are not needed, not dominant, not central? And if a man is unprepared to answer that question with honesty and strength, he will experience shame, inadequacy, and even resentment, not because she has harmed him, but because she has exposed him to himself. The realization that he no longer holds the position of dominance in her life, that he is not needed to validate her existence, forces him to confront a deeply uncomfortable truth. Many will not have the tools or the courage to endure that exposure. Retreat becomes safer. Disengagement feels less painful. The quieter withdrawal that follows is ironically a desperate act of self-preservation, cloaked in a mask of indifference or nonchalance. Beneath all of this, deeper than the games of social interaction and the courtship dance, lies a primal fear, the fear of irrelevance. Human beings, especially men, are wired to seek significance, to feel that they matter, that they are central to someone else's life and well-being. And the Sigma female, by her very existence, denies the easy paths to that sense of significance. She does not collapse into a man's life, surrender her will, or construct her identity around being chosen. She walks beside, not behind. She loves if she chooses to love, not out of emptiness, but from a place of fullness. This is why, so often, initial infatuation gives way to quiet abandonment. It's not that men stop desiring her, it's that the cost of standing as an equal beside her an equal, who must bring his own internal stability, his own purpose, his own unshakable identity, is a price many find themselves unwilling or unable to pay. It's easier to disengage than to admit that the foundations of one's identity need rebuilding. The Sigma female asks, not by demanding with words, but by her very nature, for a man to grow. To remain beside her without shrinking, a man must step into his own sovereignty. He must be willing to be unnecessary, yet still valuable. He must offer himself not as a rescuer or crutch, but as a whole being, capable of standing in the uncomfortable yet transcendent space of mutual respect. For many, that call to growth is too loud, too unsettling. And so they vanish, withdrawing not because she lacks something, but because she demanded, without speaking a word, that they become more than they currently are. It's a brutal realization to come to terms with. You are irrelevant to someone you admire. It's even more brutal to understand that this irrelevance is not because she failed to recognize your worth, but because you failed to cultivate it. And this is where the misunderstanding often begins. The man may think she is distant, cold, or unattainable. But in truth, she is offering him a mirror. What he sees reflected back is the distance, the coldness, and the emptiness within himself. In that confrontation, there are only two real options: evolve or exit. Will he grow into the kind of man who can meet her on equal ground, or will he retreat into the comfort of his own limitations? The choice is his, and the journey awaits. Now let's explore how this dynamic unfolds as the man faces the consequences of his choices. Stay with us. As we continue to explore the emotional depth of the Sigma female and the impact she has on the men around her, let's look at the choices a man faces when confronted with her presence. The choice is simple. Either stand as an equal beside her or retreat into smaller, less meaningful relationships where dependency is mistaken for connection and control is mistaken for love. Many men choose the latter path, not because they are inherently weak, but because they are unprepared. Growth, after all, is painful. It demands the death of old identities and the shattering of illusions they've long cherished. The Sigma female does not mourn the departure of these men. She understands a deeper truth. Not every man is ready to walk with a woman who does not need him to complete her story. Instead, she invites him to write a new chapter alongside her. She is not looking for someone to fill a void. She is seeking a partner who can stand beside her, equally whole. Emotional availability is not a luxury in relationships. It is the very foundation of true intimacy. Yet, it is often mistaken for weakness, unnecessary vulnerability, or something optional. The Sigma female exists in a state where emotional maturity is non-negotiable. She has walked through the fires of her own past, learned to sit with pain without running from it, and emerged from those flames not unscarred, but profoundly alive. Her emotional landscape is not chaotic. It is vast, ordered, and made habitable through years of brutal self-honesty. She demands, simply by being, a level of emotional presence that many men have never been required to provide. When a man first encounters this, he may find it alluring. She listens with intensity, speaks with precision, and feels with depth, but she does not indulge in drama. She will not be baited into cycles of passive aggression, manipulation, or emotional immaturity. Her honesty is surgical clean and often unsettling. If there is an emotional wound, she sees it without flinching. If there is avoidance, she recognizes it before a word is spoken. For a man unaccustomed to being seen so clearly, so nakedly, the experience can be both exhilarating and terrifying. Most men are not taught to prepare for this. They are subtly and overtly encouraged to armor themselves, to minimize their feelings, and to hide uncertainty behind competence and bravado. In her presence, that armor becomes transparent. She doesn't attack it, but she sees through it, and that seeing feels like exposure. It triggers every unhealed wound, the fear of not being enough, the terror of abandonment, the shame of emotional inadequacy. But she is not there to fix or rescue. She simply stands as a beacon of what wholeness looks like. The contrast between a woman who is emotionally fluent and a man who is emotionally stunted is often unbearable. The chasm between them is not easily bridged. It requires willingness, humility, and the courage to descend into one's own pain, not to wallow in it, but to confront it and rise above it. So, will he face this challenge and grow, or will he shrink away from it? The choice is his, and the consequences will shape the path ahead. Stay with us as we explore how this internal battle unfolds. As we continue to explore the complexities of the Sigma female and the men who struggle to meet her on equal ground, let's delve into the emotional dynamics that unfold when one partner is unwilling or unable to rise to the challenge. For the relationship to thrive, there must be a willingness to integrate this new understanding of self. Without it, the relationship becomes unbalanced, where one side offers depth and the other meets it with defensiveness. The man withdraws not because he doesn't desire her, but because he cannot yet meet the gaze that demands he become fully human, authentic, vulnerable, and whole. Compounding this dynamic is the reality of self-sufficiency. For the Sigma female, independence is not a performance, it is a state of being. She has created a life of meaning, purpose, and stability without requiring constant external validation or reinforcement. Her relationships are chosen, not clung to. Her love is freely given, not extracted through games or manipulation. She is not waiting for someone to complete her. She is inviting someone to complement her. And this distinction is crucial. Many men have been conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to how much they are needed. Their value becomes entangled with dependency. If a woman can survive without them, they feel diminished, irrelevant, emasculated. They mistake her independence for rejection, her self-sufficiency for coldness. But in reality, she is offering the highest form of partnership own that can be freely chosen without coercion or necessity. This invitation, however, requires a radical shift in perception. It demands that a man recognize that his value does not come from being indispensable, but from being present, authentic, and whole. It asks him to be wanted, not needed, to contribute without controlling, to support without overshadowing, and to love without possessing. For those unprepared to make that shift, her independence feels like a wall rather than an open door. They interpret her lack of emotional dependency as emotional distance. They project onto her the fear that they are replaceable, disposable, unimportant. And instead of confronting these fears directly, many retreat into safer waters, into relationships where need is mistaken for love, and dependency masks itself as connection. The tragedy here is profound. So many connections that could have been transformative partnerships collapse under the weight of misunderstood strength. Men retreat, convincing themselves that she was too strong, too complicated, too cold. When in truth, she was simply asking, without demanding, for an equal. The Sigma female does not shrink herself to soothe these fears. She will not pretend to be smaller, weaker, or more dependent to make another feel comfortable. That would be a betrayal of everything she has built within herself. She offers the possibility of a relationship rooted not in mutual inadequacy, but in mutual respect and sovereignty. And for those ready to accept that invitation, the rewards are beyond measure. A partnership where both can stand tall, where love is not clung to out of fear, but embraced freely as a choice. Yet, for many, the gulf between readiness and reality remains too vast. It is easier to retreat than to rise. But for those who dare to cross that divide, the potential for growth, connection, and true intimacy is unparalleled. Now, let's look at how this dynamic affects the next stages of their journey together. Stay with us as we explore what happens when these two worlds collide. Continuing from the previous reflection on the Sigma female's impact on men, let's dive deeper into the misunderstandings that arise when her strength challenges their perceptions of love and connection. It is easier for many men to walk away than to walk toward the growth that she silently demands. And so, they disappear, leaving not a vacuum in her life, but a quiet affirmation that she was never meant to carry another's unexamined pain. This is a profound misunderstanding that pervades much of our culture, the belief that strength is cold, detached, and incapable of tenderness. In reality, this notion of strength is powerless, baseless, and a soft picture of life that simply manages our pain. It breeds feelings of helplessness and dependency. This misconception is especially pronounced when it comes to the Sigma female. Because she doesn't present herself as emotionally needy, and because she refuses to bend to appease others, she is often misread as incapable of deep affection. But this is a profound error in perception. Her strength is not the absence of feeling, rather it is the container that allows feelings to flourish without chaos. Her boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out. Instead, they are the very structures that make real intimacy, possible structures that say, "Here I am, and I have enough respect for myself and for you to show up whole." When a man first encounters this, it challenges everything he may have been taught about love. In many models of love, sacrifice is glorified, the quiet erosion of the self to meet another's needs. But the Sigma female does not ask for such erosion. She does not want to be loved by halves, nor does she offer her love that way. Her affection, when given, is wholehearted, rooted in choice, not desperation. It is a gift, not a transaction. But to receive it requires a level of maturity that many have never cultivated. It requires the ability to stand in the presence of another's strength without needing to diminish it to feel secure. The emotional environment she creates is one of incredible richness, but it demands participation. She will not chase, plead, or contort herself to keep a man's interest alive. She believes profoundly in reciprocity, the idea that both partners must tend the fire of connection together. If he neglects it, assuming it will burn without his effort, she does not protest. She simply lets it die and walks away without bitterness. Her detachment is not cruelty, it is dignity. It is the understanding that love cannot be sustained by one person alone, no matter how fierce the initial spark. This dynamic once again reveals much about the psychological development of the men she encounters. Those who are used to being the center of attention, who expect devotion without effort, find themselves disoriented, unable to handle the level of emotional maturity she requires. As we move forward, let's explore how this disorientation affects their decisions and the relationships that follow. Stay tuned as we uncover the next layer of this complex emotional landscape. Continuing from the previous discussion about the Sigma female's unique presence and the reactions it triggers in men, let's explore how her refusal to chase after love becomes the very catalyst for self-realization and how this challenges those around her. They often interpret her refusal to chase as a lack of interest, but in reality, it is the clearest sign of respect for both herself and for the other person. She does not manipulate, does not cling. Instead, she offers a clear choice. Walk beside me if you will, but I will not drag you forward. In the silence of her non-pursuit, many men face an unbearable realization that true love cannot be demanded or coerced. It must be inspired, nurtured, and earned daily through presence, authenticity, and mutual respect. And if they are unwilling to rise to that challenge, if the idea of mutual effort feels too foreign or too demanding, they retreat. They tell themselves stories to protect their pride stories that she was too aloof, too hard to read, too independent. But underneath those justifications lies the harsher truth. They were unwilling to do the work that real love requires. This brings us to the final, devastating reason why men fall so quickly and disappear even faster. The Sigma female forces them to confront their own unrealized potential. She does not merely invite growth, she necessitates it. Her very existence demands those around her to rise, evolve, and shed the layers of immaturity and fear that so often masquerade as personality. She does not issue ultimatums. She does not lecture. She simply lives unapologetically with a level of self-possession that acts as a silent rebuke to complacency. For the man who has grown tired of living half-lived lives, for the man who is ready to be more than the sum of his fears and defenses, her presence is transformative. She becomes a catalyst igniting a process that, if endured, leads to a richer, fuller existence, not just with her, but within himself. But for the man who clings to comfort, who would rather blame than build, who fears change more than he desires greatness, she is intolerable. And so they disappear, not because they don't feel deeply, but because they feel too much and lack the internal structure to hold it. They vanish, not because she was too much, but because she demanded without demanding that they become enough. Enough for themselves first, and only then, enough for her. The Sigma female does not lower herself to explain this to soothe egos bruised by their own inadequacies. She moves forward, secure in the knowledge that true partnership is not built on dependency, but on the mutual recognition of worth. She does not mourn those who retreat, for she understands a timeless truth. Those who vanish were never equipped to stay. They were not rejected by her strength. They were rejected by their own refusal to grow into it. And in this, she finds peace not in solitude for its own sake, but in the unshakable knowledge that her life, rich and full and fiercely her own, will never be compromised to ease the fears of those who are not yet ready to meet it. If you recognize yourself in this journey, know this: your strength, your depth, your quiet power are not liabilities. They are gifts. You are not too much. You are a mirror reflecting exactly where others are on their path. And sometimes that reflection is too bright for those still hiding in their own shadows. But never ever dim your light to make others comfortable. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a man falling fast only to vanish? What lessons did you take from it? Share your story in the comments below. I read every comment, and your wisdom could be the breakthrough someone else needs today. If you found value in today's conversation, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. If there's a topic you'd like us to explore next, drop it in the comments below. I'm building this community with you and for you. Until next time, remember, you are powerful beyond measure.